Our guest today is president of the Joyce Foundation. The Joyce Foundation has assets of $800 million and makes grants of roughly $40 million a year. Their priorities include, number one, improving educational outcomes for low-income children. We heard about that a little bit the other day from Barbara Bird Bennett right here. Employment and workforce issues. Skinny, this will put all those Olympians to work, among others. And number three, energy efficiency and water quality. Our guest today holds an honors degree in English from Brown University and a Master's of Management in Finance and Marketing from Kellogg. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the City Club of Chicago, Ellen Alberding. Ellen?
Thanks. Good afternoon. Great to be here. I'm happy to say that actually our assets are closer to $1 billion, which is good for everybody in the room who's really interested in our assets and not in anything I have to say. I am incredibly lucky because I love my job and I love the work that I do. And about 12 of the reasons that I really love my job and the work that I do are sitting in the room today. And if those of you who are on the staff of the foundation wouldn't mind just raising your hand or standing up and getting a little acknowledgement. We have an amazing team at the foundation, and I think that they define integrity, dedication, and thought leadership in their fields, and it really makes it a pleasure for me to come to work every day. I often have talked to you about policy ideas, and that is the basic mission of the foundation, is to work on policy, but I want to do something a little bit different today, which is to talk about a trend that we're all really very familiar with, which is the explosion of digital technology and how mastery of this tool can create success or can even define the survival, particularly of smaller organizations. I was watching Jay sitting next to me as his own digital technology was exploding on his phone. And he's like, what is this thing that just came up? I don't even know what it is that popped up on his phone. What was it? FaceTime. He's like, what's FaceTime? But in addition to managing Jay at lunch, I also wanted to tell you a little bit about what our foundation is doing to try to keep our grantees and ourselves up to speed in this world. We all know that storytelling is a way to engage more people in the policy and issues that we care about. And obviously in the political world and in the corporate world, you've seen ads that tug at your heartstrings. They try to get you to change your mind about an issue or buy a product or whatever. But telling stories to make a point is not exactly a new phenomenon. Think of the Bible or Homer or Shakespeare. Storytelling is really a primal form of human connection. It's intrinsic to the human condition, and it's been around forever. So what's the fuss now? Well, what the fuss now is that our ability to create and share stories in a massive kind of way has really exploded. It's a digital revolution that makes the invention of the printing press, which invented mass communication, or even the invention of the jet airplane, which all of a sudden made our world so much smaller for commerce and face-to-face interaction. But now we have something that's even greater happening with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat and FaceTime and all those other things on your phone. They've become ingrained in our culture so quickly that you can sort of forget how new they are. I realized when somebody told me Facebook's only been around 10 years, Twitter's been around 8 years, Instagram has only been around 4 years, and yet it's like kind of part of our everyday lives, and it's certainly part of our children's everyday lives. So we've moved from stone tablets to digital tablets. We've gone from huddling around the fire, paying attention to a wise elder, to fiddling around on our phones with an app that was probably made by a wise younger. Sometimes this nonstop, instantaneous access to information, I think, can work to our detriment, and there's a lot of debate about that, and I'll get around to that at the end of my talk. But there's also really good news. For those of us trying to influence policy, we now have the ability to reach potential supporters and advocates easily, efficiently, and with great impact if we know how to do it. The less good news is that lots of people in my world, particularly smaller nonprofit organizations, have not exactly been early adopters of digital technology. They're not sophisticated users, and it's a competitive disadvantage in what is really an intensely competitive battle to capture the attention and support of the public, whatever your issue. Skinny, did you have something you wanted to?
I don't know how to turn it off.
So here's an example. We realize it's a critical problem for many of our partners. And we wanted to figure out, is there something that we could do about it? And we come at this as a foundation that hasn't been an early adapter ourselves. I mean, I knew it was a problem, but really did not have any kind of skill set to do anything about it. But here are the couple of things that we did do. First, we've been using our own digital platforms to amplify the voices of our grantees. And second, we've been providing expert consultation to grantees who want it, and we've been paying for really high-level staff people that work at in our grantees' offices so that they can develop their own digital expertise. These are the ways we're trying to help even the playing field a little bit. Let me give you a little context about Joyce. Jay did a nice job of talking about most of our missions. Our core mission really is to support the development of policies that we believe will improve the quality of life for everybody in the Great Lake region. Our focus is on the environment, as Jay said, on education, K-12 education reform and early reading, workforce development and employment policy, gun violence prevention, diverse arts for diverse populations, and a strong and thriving democracy. Obviously, it's kind of a broad agenda. They're big problems, and they require really complex solutions. We've got a great team working on the issues, which I mentioned, and I think we're particularly good and particularly effective at reaching policymakers. But I would think all of us working on our team would agree that we're not always as great at reaching the general public. I was concerned about this and really felt that we were lagging behind. I have a lot of mentors in my life. I'm really lucky, and I asked one mentor, like, what can I do about this? And he was not very helpful. He said, hire a 19-year-old. Like, okay, thank you. But actually, that did turn out to be the solution. The youngest person on our staff, who had done some work on a couple of campaigns, came to the office, or came to the foundation and just was like, you know, look at what the 2012 presidential campaign did. Look what happened in 2008. Why isn't this foundation with all its resources, and why aren't our grantees doing a better job than they are? So and his name was Scott Wang. He's now at MIT doing great things, but he was with us for a couple of years and basically yanked our chain and got us going. Katie McCormick-Lelyveld, our communications director, and I knew he was right and decided that helping our grantees build their own digital capacities was particularly important for smaller groups that didn't have a staff or budget. I mentioned that political campaigns and consumer groups are really good at doing this stuff. There are also some great groups doing it, particularly in the environmental field. You'll see Sierra Club and NRDC, Environmental Defense. They've set the bar really high for the use of digital technology. But basically, the rest of us have been a little slow. The money that we have spent on this has had fantastic results. We found it simple, we found it inexpensive, we found it effective. And I wish I could say that about all of the projects that we work on. It's not always the case. We've had great outcomes. One of the grantees that we worked with was an environmental group called Clean Wisconsin. And they did a couple of simple things. They asked visitors to their Facebook page to send in photos of Wisconsin's natural beauty, and I think there's an example up there, and then use those photos to inspire others to become fans and advocates. They were following one of the basic rules of online engagement. Ask someone to do something really simple, like send in a photo, and attract others who share the interest. So their results were kind of great. They went from 5,000 followers to 20,000 followers in less than 2 years. They then followed basic rule number 2, which was to ask those folks who had done something simple to do something a little harder. They asked them to agree to make a call to a legislator or agree to be active in some way on an issue, moving up what's called the ladder of engagement, and they had a similar great result. They went from about 4,500 activists to about 20,000 activists, and in a state like Wisconsin, that makes Clean Wisconsin a really, really powerful organization. Actually, the brains behind that operation is here. Amanda Wagner, if you want to raise your hand. Great job, Amanda. You've done a really terrific thing. We expect you to be at 40,000 next year. Well, we hope.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay. In addition to providing this kind of direct support, which I think Amanda would acknowledge has been helpful to her, to many organizations, and there's a lot of other success stories, we've done what we can to use our own platform to raise up the voices of folks who otherwise would not have necessarily a big profile. We had an all-digital annual report this year, which featured 14 wonderful grantees. You can see their faces up on the screen. And they're also on the cards at your table. And if you go to our website, you can hear each of their stories. These are folks who aren't generally invited to speak at forums like this. So I wanted to take a few minutes today to share my platform with 3 of them. Let me start with Patty Fuentes. The foundation takes pride in listening to and supporting teachers and providing platforms for teachers to connect with and learn from each other. Teachers can't succeed without the right support and resources, so we fund groups like the New Teacher Center. It's a national nonprofit that supports teachers through personalized mentoring and coaching, and Patty is one of their clients.
Every day is different. Every child is different. They have different learning needs, and they're not all at the same level. You don't know what to expect. You can suddenly change your lesson plan from one moment to the other because kids are not retaining the information that you're teaching them, or they're just not grasping the idea. I wanted to know what it looked like. What does a distinguished teacher look like? So when I sat down with my principal, we kind of went back and forth. Well, how can I improve? How can I get better? Or what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And seeing it from 2 different perspectives besides my principal, the assistant principal as well. So it was nice getting that feedback. That's all I needed was just to talk to somebody and kind of piggyback ideas, which is something you don't really get to do with other teachers because we all have the same schedule. We're all very busy. Do I have a favorite thing about the evaluation process? I don't think I do. But if I were to choose something, it'd probably be the feedback that I get from my principal and having that whole hour to just talk about how I did. And now I know how to improve. I know how to get better. So now I feel confident. I think my end goal is to always be a lifelong learner. I think it's very important to always keep progressing, to always better yourself. And that's what I want to teach my students as well, that there's never an end to education. It always keeps going. You should always seek knowledge.
I think we can agree we'd all love to have a teacher like her in our child's classroom, or to work with someone like her who's just struggling so hard to get better every day. A second grantee I'd like you to meet is Rebecca Reynolds. Rebecca is Executive Director of Chicago Votes, although on her website she's called Boss Lady, and I don't know, that works for me. Is Rebecca here? Rebecca's here, oh great. I didn't know if she was going to join us, great. Well, nice to see you, Boss Lady. Rebecca realized pretty early on that as politics was becoming more and more polarized, that people were not coming around the political parties so much, but coming around the issues that they really cared about. She also was concerned about the fact that so many younger people are alienated from and not participating in our political process in a constructive way, and maybe even turned off by all the screaming and yelling that seems to be going on. So she established Chicago Votes, and she's focusing particularly on encouraging new voters to understand how their participation really can have an impact on the issues that they care about. So let's hear from Rebecca.
We had an idea about a year and a half ago about creating an organization for and by young people, and we're so excited to see all the enthusiasm around it. One year we were at the Prince concert for 3 days of voter engagement and education. We're finding them, and then we're reminding them that their voices matter and are important. I think that young people are rarely being engaged on the issues that matter most to them. But when you do ask them, what issues do you care about, and do help connect them to the fact that these are decisions that happen through policy making on the local, state, and national level, they immediately tune in. It's just so great to hear young people say, I always thought this was something that wasn't for me, that this was something that other people do, and that now I know, like, this is something I do and all of my friends need to be doing too. They're looking at democracy with fresh eyes, and they're seeing a lot of challenges, but they're seeing a place for themselves to make change. Political reform knows no political ideology. It's not left, it's not right, it's moving forward, and it's building a stronger, more robust democracy. Young people are our leaders. They will be running this country someday. Whether they understand how to do that in a way that's collaborative, that's respectful, that engages in the system in a positive way, that is community-oriented. We need young folks right now who are paying attention to what those issues are, so that later down the road they're going to be equipped to fight and lead and build their communities.
What a great message. You know, it's fabulous. And I have a deep personal commitment to most of our grantees, but spending 3 days at a Prince concert is just not something I'd be willing to, go with. But, you have to find another volunteer for that. And finally, another partner featured in our annual report is someone probably many of you know, Paul Roldan. He is the president and CEO of the Hispanic Housing Development Corporation, which develops affordable housing in Chicago's Latino neighborhoods. And his mission, is to provide affordable housing, but he's become very interested in and committed to how you can use energy efficiency to reduce the costs for the people living in the buildings and also make it more affordable for the people managing the buildings. So he's developed a very robust and sophisticated set of changes to the buildings that he's running. Ultimately, what he's doing is keeping people in high-quality housing that they can afford, while also leaving a cleaner planet for future generations. Let's hear from Paul, and he really is a Chicagoan, even though he sounds like he's from the Bronx.
We manage about 4,400 apartments. All of them are affordable, a very fine balance between not making it or losing money. So that vulnerability led me to begin to think about how we could reduce our energy costs. And we decided to sort of, as an experiment, to try to carry out both retrofitting and installation of sustainable energy. And we're pretty far down the road in this experiment. In fact, we're now convinced that this is a viable entity that could provide substantial energy savings for affordable housing in Chicago and, outside of the city of Chicago as well. HUD is monitoring what we do, and probably will gather up the results of that and try to sort of promulgate some regulation, law, to try to get owners of affordable housing to do sort of what we're experimenting with right now. The savings that are generated are shared with the tenants on day one. We have created islands of affordability. So it creates an opportunity for families to root themselves within the community, have some stability in their lives in terms of school, churches, all of that. And that, to me, sort of trying to create social equity here, other than putting a roof over people's head, is the major goal of our organization. All of us have a responsibility to do what we can in this area, really, if we're successful, not for ourselves, but for our kids and their kids.
I had a great time visiting with Paul and visiting one of his buildings, and I saw the solar panels and all this technical stuff that I was like, okay, I'm glad it works, and then met with some of the tenants. And what they were focused on was the training that they'd had about how to reduce their energy consumption. Like, use a fan instead of the air conditioner if it's not that hot out. Take a shorter shower, simple things that they practiced it, and then they saw at the end of the month that their bill was lower. And they happened to have grown up in Puerto Rico, and one woman whose name was Ludovina tapped her pocket and told me that when she's able to save even a few pennies every month, that her pocket is happy. And the connection between, this high concept and technical intervention that Paul was doing with the individual lives of the people in the building could not have been more obvious and more moving to me. So it was a very nice thing for me to see, and I hope for you to see as well. All of these vignettes spotlight just a few of the issues that we're working on at Joyce, helping teachers to become even better, strengthening our democracy, and promoting energy efficiency. I've got one final example. I can't not talk about our gun violence program, and it happens to fit really nicely into this because it's a great example of how digital technology can spread a message really effectively. Shannon Watts was a stay-at-home mother with 5 children. She's from suburban Indianapolis, and she founded a group called Moms Demand Action the day after the shooting at Sandy Hook. She had a simple Facebook page at the beginning. She was targeting other moms. She wanted other moms to comment on what they thought was going on. She's gone from that day in 2012 to 200,000 followers, and she's become one of the most powerful organizations in this field. 2 of the chapter leaders from Illinois are here today, and I really wish they would stand and get a round of applause for the work that they're doing. Two of 200,000, and you've met them here. Let me show you a short video, not developed by us, developed on their own, that demonstrates why this little group, started by one outraged and determined mom, has blossomed into one of the most powerful anti-gun violence organizations in the nation.
Every day, 8 American children are killed by guns.
That's 1 child every 3 hours.
One child.
One child.
Every 3 hours.
Enough.
Enough.
Demand a plan.
Demand a plan. As a mom.
As a mom.
As a mom.
As a mom.
As a mom. As a daughter.
As a grandmother.
As a grandmother.
As a grandmother.
As a wife.
As a sister.
As a friend.
As a doctor. As a teacher.
As a pediatrician.
As an American. As an American.
For the children of Sandy Hook, demand a plan.
No more of our children.
No more of our friends. No more of our moms and dads.
No more remembering who they were.
No more families wondering who they might have been.
It's time.
It's time.
Demand a plan.
Right now.
It's time for our leaders to act.
For our children.
It's time.
It's time.
Demand a plan. Right now.
You can see why when they attacked Starbucks policy on allowing guns into Starbucks, when they went after Chipotle, and they've gone after some other big names as well, that those organizations, which largely market themselves to women, are listening to them and changing their policies on allowing guns into their facilities. I want to close by pushing the conversation in a slightly different direction, though, because it's not just about telling stories, it's also about listening. And sometimes you have to turn off your devices in order to really hear. I can make a case all day long using data, research, trend lines, and I've done that in previous talks at the City Club. But sometimes the data just doesn't do the trick. Sometimes we have to step away from it. We have to step away from the busyness of our lives, the incredible rush of information on our screens. We need to stop and listen. We need to listen to the hard work and dedication of Patty Fuentes, who's working so hard to become a better teacher. We have to listen to the brilliant ideas of a man like Paul Roldan, who's connecting the housing and energy efficiency stories to make better lives for people. We have to admire and listen to the determination of Rebecca Reynolds, who wants young people to participate and see the importance of a strong democracy. And of course, Shannon Watts and our friends here today, who have channeled the passion of women across the country in a drive to reduce gun violence. And I'm encouraging you and myself and our foundation and all of us to take the time to listen, to pass on the stories of people you admire. And it might be your neighbor, it might be your sister, it might be your mother, it might be anybody else who doesn't really have a platform. When we can do something to acknowledge and lift up the voices of the least powerful, we're doing something good for our society and for our democracy. That's how Joyce has approached this challenge. I realize we have a long way to go, and our efforts could get even better, but we intend to take full advantage of every opportunity we have to do so, and we appreciate you listening to us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for lifting up the voices of the less powerful, Ellen and your whole entire staff. They do good work. We have a couple of questions. I'm going to ask one, and you want to come on back up. Let's start with one about gun violence. It is with respect to having a plan to what the moms just talked about. What is the Joyce Foundation doing in Springfield to work with some of the gun violence legislation? Gary McCarthy talked about it a couple of days ago. We'd like to hear what you all are doing.
Well, we fund a group called Illinois Coalition Against Handgun Violence, which is very active in Springfield. And the main focus of that group, we obviously don't lobby. We're a policy organization and a research organization. But one of the main focuses is on strengthening the background check system in our state. And then they have a couple of other policy priorities as well. But strengthening background checks is an important one.
Another question is from, Dennis, if you don't mind me putting you on blast, about your digital footprint. He's a small not-for-profit at the Daily Whale. Dennis, wave your hand so everybody will know, since I'm putting you on blast here. With respect to his digital footprint, how are you guys advising, talking to small organizations and helping them? You talked a little bit about some of the groups that you're helping.
Well, we've done a couple of things. We've done a series of trainings for our organizations that want to participate, smaller grantees of ours. We've made grants to organizations that want to hire somebody in-house, who can find somebody that they think is good, that can sort of build their capacity and maintain their capacity. And we're continuing to do supportive things like that. I mean, it's a whole range of activities.
So I have a question, another one, with respect to this ladder of engagement. With the digital technology, it's very clear that, those who are less seasoned than some of us are far more proficient. You heard Skinny's phone going off, Audman Moore's phone blowing up, and other people's. I just had to do that. I couldn't resist. With respect to that, we see that some of the younger population are moving forward, and they are the more intelligent ones with respect to this. Are you all looking to start any kind of a platform to help them move forward in some of the other organizations that you're working with?
I don't think it's we're not trying to keep up with, we're not trying to keep up with people who are already high-level users, and also I don't think it's appropriate for us. We have to find the right space. We're a think tanky foundation, and I don't think we're going to be out there, really aggressively tweeting every day, although our new digital person may be having a heart attack over there. She's going to tell me what we're going to be doing that's appropriate for us. But I don't really think Joyce Foundation is an advisor to others in this field. We're learning alongside our pals and our grantees, and we're trying to find the best resources and make them available to our grantees as well as to ourselves. But we're not trying to put ourselves out there as experts that can advise others. We want to make the resources available to others, and that's, we have resources, so we can make that move.